Okay, good evening, everyone. Good morning to those, and good morning to those who are outside India or in different time zones. I know there are a lot of participants who are within India and outside India as well. So, warm welcome on behalf of Honeycomb Creative Support and Photostop, which is a printing brand of Honeycomb. I welcome all of you to Reels of Wonders. Now, a lot of people ask us this question: Why Reels of Wonders? For this week, it's primarily because a lot of us as photographers have graduated from the film camera days. You know, when it used to be reels, and then out into the technology or the digital age today. My name is Mithun Prabhu, and I handle PR and marketing for Photostop and Honeycomb, the printing brand of Honeycomb Creative Support, like I mentioned. I'm an IT professional myself, but a passionate travel photographer by heart. Photography is absolutely in my DNA, and I love what I click. And I primarily enjoy. So with travel, I get to do a lot of photography and understanding the diversity, culture of any place. We are celebrating International Photography Week 2020 this whole week. Why International Photography Week is, naturally all of you as photographers know tomorrow is International Photography Day, and we thought why only a day? Let's celebrate the week with seven different genres of photography, seven eminent speakers who are photographers themselves, and 7 full days of this week. Started day before yesterday and goes on all the way till Saturday, August 22nd. Sorry. We have a wide variety of topics ranging from underwater today, participation in salons tomorrow, astro, macro, and travel photography as we go proceed further. So like I said, if you're not registered, kindly go to photostop.in and register for the remaining 4 sessions as well. I can definitely tell you, if you haven't registered for any one of them or all of them, you are definitely going to miss tons of it. So please do register. You will definitely have a wonderful time. All the eminent speakers have taken utmost care to curate the photographs themselves, and they are going to share their unique experiences, some breathtaking photographs, share tips and tricks for all of us, so that you know what to do and what not to do, and most importantly, take you on an absolutely enjoyable journey into the wonderful world of photography. So welcoming all of you again, let's go rolling into the Reels of Wonders, the theme of International Photography Week 2020. So before we get in, I would request Vinay to just put in the poll. Like I mentioned, there'll be a poll on your screen. Kindly please exercise your options and select one of those options. Vinay, can we have the poll, please?
Mithun sir, we'll do after some time. Next, I'll
Okay,
keep it ready.
no problem. That's fine. Okay, so today's like I mentioned sometime back, it is today's session. I mean, see, I as a photographer, let me tell you this: I have not experienced underwater photography. I have never seen anything, that there are lots of maybe underwater photographers. So it's absolutely uh, to me, as well as I'm sure for a lot of you who have joined in, nearly 350 odd people that I see as of now, it's going to be something very different. And today we have underwater photographer Bhushan Bagadia to talk about his love for water and the perks of being an underwater photographer. Imagine it's a perk for him to be an underwater photographer. He's a photographer and cinematographer by profession. He realized he had a keen interest in photography and filmmaking in 2003 when he was actively involved in theater. In the year 2008, he pursued his filmmaking lessons from New York Film Academy and School of Visual Arts. He has been involved in making films at various levels and different spheres, spanning sports, music, videos, advertisements, underwater films, dance, weddings, not for profit organizations, and public awareness campaigns. He had been working closely with the Indian Premier League, which is the IPL, since 2013 for generating photographs, videos, for social media content for the teams. He has been the official photographer for Team Chennai in FC at the Indian Super League since 2014. And let me tell you that the IPL of 2013-14, he is actually photographed the legends like Sachin Tendulkar's and Rohit Sharma's and the likes, and Ricky Ponting and those. So you can imagine the vast experience he has. In fact, I was mentioning to him that he should definitely share his experience in a different session some other time. In fact, at this point also, I also want to let you know that he is actually flying down this weekend to be with the IPL teams for 2020, which is happening in UAE. So he is definitely one sports photographer that I've seen has multi-talented things under his bucket. In addition, he has been the line producer for the Nike Make Every Yard Count commercial for the T20 World Cup in 2014, which has won several awards and collaborated with Grammy Award-winning artists like Ricky Cage for few music videos. He always loved water and scuba diving, in which is something that rejuvenates his soul. So he decided to turn his biggest passion into a full-time hobby, and that's how his journey into underwater photography began. We are eagerly waiting for his debut Kannada feature film, which will be released pretty soon. I hope you all have a wonderful and unforgettable learning experience with Bhushan himself. Well, welcome, Bhushan, and I'm ready. Everybody is ready to roll with you.
Thanks, Mithun. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can.
Thank you for that elaborate introduction. I don't know what to say, but thank you. Shall I just start? Shall I go to share the screen?
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
So Vinay needs to switch off his thing. Yeah, okay.
Okay, Bhushan, just 1 minute. Vinay, are we ready with the poll or?
Yeah, the poll is ready. Yeah.
Okay, can you please put it?
Let's do the poll.
Yeah, let's do that, because that will also give an understanding. Yeah, okay. So here is the poll on your screens. Kindly use your voting buttons. So how many of you in the attendees are? Oh, sorry, it's not landscape, but it is underwater photography. Kindly please select. Read it as underwater photography. Sorry for the words. So you will either be an expert, somewhat have tried in the past, an amateur, never tried before, want to learn more. So Bhushan, it is interesting that looks like there are two people who are experts. That's very interesting. Okay, 15 more seconds before we close. As I'm expecting, never tried before is trending. So nearly 350 people have voted. Okay, here you go. We end the poll, and here are the results. So Bhushan never tried before, 56%, which is nearly 200 people, and want to learn more is nearly 16%. Very interestingly, 13% are amateurs, and some people have tried in the past. So that's very interesting for you to know. Okay, Bhushan, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mithun. Just let me know if you can see the screen, and then I'll start. All right. So, Mithun, am I audible? I just want to check once before we get in.
Yes, you're very much.
Yes, Bhushan.
All right, super. So this today's talk, what I'm going to give you is not going to be as very technical. It's just basically me taking you through some interesting stories that have changed my life, changed what I do and how I do, and what has brought me to this stage. This photograph that I'm showing you right now is actually there is a story attached to it. It is an oceanic black-tipped shark. I'll come back to this later, but since we are talking about sharks, I am going to take you first through a little bit of a story. Let's start with a story, and then we'll go back to how I started underwater photography. So, 1 second. Yeah. So this is a ragged-toothed shark or a sand tiger shark. I shot this photo in South Africa, What I wanted to tell you here is that what is the one thing that everybody associates sharks with? I have heard this so many times when people say, okay, so sharks, how do you dive underwater with sharks, and is it unsafe and stuff? This most common things that you hear that people talk about, or they say when you think of sharks, you're thinking of some of these terms. I think all of you must have heard these. You remember the movie Jaws, or you say that they are predators, they are menacing, they are man eaters. Now, which is probably true in a sense that they can be they can attack and all of that. But I'm going to start today's session with sharing a video with an experience that I had. So let me tell you about that experience. I was in South Africa, and we were on a dive trip where we have to actually be on a boat, and then you wait for the marine life to assemble, and then when it's around you, then you jump in, you see them, and then you come back up on the boat, and then you take the boat again to another place where you might see some action. One of my boat captain actually got a tip that at one far off location from where we were, he had seen some of these type of sharks. So the assumption was that if the sharks were there regularly, that means that there could have been a reef below. So we didn't know where we were going. So we said, why don't we try that out? Now we were 6 of us on that boat. So we went to this location which nobody had ever been to before. Nobody's gone inside the water there. We reached there, and then we said, okay, let's try diving. And there are many things that we need to take care of while diving, but we decided to stay together and not do any fast movements, not try to scare anything around us. And we jumped in. And what's amazing is that now all of us were a little scared because we didn't know where we were jumping in. We didn't know if we would find the reef. We didn't know how deep we would have to go inside the ocean. So we went down to about, I think about 20 meters, and we found the reef. That itself was a success for us. We found the reef, and on top of the reef, we saw some of these ragged-toothed sharks. And we thought that was already great. We found something new, and it was great. But just then we were like, okay, we've seen this in the first 15 minutes of our dive. So what do we do now? So we waited around, and then we went around the reef. And just as we went around the reef, there was this burst of sharks. This one type of sharks, and there were hundreds of them. Just this one type. And what was amazing, this is the learning from that dive, is that we were all scared. If the first time some human being has gone inside, the sharks are seeing them for the first time, and if they would be agitated or whatever, but nothing happened. We went down, we were calm, so they were calm, and they welcomed us into their world for us to see how they are and where they are. And then we could just easily see them, and then we came back up. There was no threat to us. There was none of these terms that we associate sharks with were true that day. So here is a little video that I want you to see before we go to my journey. Now you will see what happened when you went around the reef.
Bhushan, that was just amazing. I just felt as if I was inside the water, man.
Sir, you went into mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. So moving on. So you saw that video, and none of these terms that we associate these sharks with was true, right? The sharks welcomed us, and there was no threat, and we could have this amazing life-changing experience. So anyway, how did I become an underwater photographer? We're going to quickly breeze through all these sections before I get to other stories. A lot of things in my life happened by chance, like by accident, as Mithun likes to say. I went to visit my sister in London, and I didn't want to do anything touristy. So I said, I don't want to go see any of the London sites and all that. So let's find something else to do. So we went online and we said, offbeat things to do in London, and we found scuba diving. We both love the water, so we said, okay, let's go learn how to scuba dive. So I went straight down. We drove down to Cornwall, and the conditions in Cornwall are actually not nice to dive. It's really cold water, like 13 degrees underwater, and it's like you have to wear double wetsuit, and it's cold. The visibility is less. The marine life is not so much. But anyway, when I in that dive, like just being underwater, despite all these hardships, it just changed something in me. Like I love being underwater, not being able to like hear anything else and only listening to my breathing. It changed a lot for me. So I said, okay, I have to dive more. So then I said, okay, let me dive. Let me figure out how I can dive and where I can dive and all of that. So then I started diving. So this was in 2006. Then 2009, I went to Thailand, and I just went to Thailand to do some more diving. There I saw a company called Liquid Media, and I just walked in. I was very intrigued. They said, I asked them, what do you do? They said, we make films underwater. So I said, I want to learn. They said, sure, just, if your visa is long enough, stay back, we'll teach you. So I came back to India, got a longer visa and flew back there. And I just stayed in Thailand for the next 3-4 months. Every day shooting with them, with their gear, them teaching me, and me diving every day and learning how to shoot and whatever it would take to learn to be an underwater photographer. All my training happened then. So then I finished that, and then I came back. And after I came back, then the reality hit in that there were lots of challenges to be an underwater photographer. So I had learned how to shoot. I had learned how to dive. I knew what it takes to be an underwater photographer in terms of executing it. But what was beyond that? Obviously, the main challenges that you have as an underwater photographer is for me, the biggest thing was getting my own underwater shooting gear. It's an expensive gear. Like you can get a housing, which is the casing in which the camera sits for most of the cameras that people have. And back then I had a Canon 5D Mark III, so I needed to get an underwater housing for that. And it's really expensive. There are many brands and things like that. But so I found a brand. I knew that this is the amount of money I need to spend, and it was going to take me a long time. Then, of course, finding paid underwater work. Underwater photography is relatively new, as you would have heard Mithun also say. In India, there are not too many people doing it. So even for it to be a paying profession was a challenge. But I was happy to just do it and figure a way to get to that without it paying me. Then continuing diving. So you have to go into the ocean to dive and to shoot marine life. The diving is also an expensive process. So for me, basically, it came down to money, and then to figure out how do I get to that stage. And then, of course, the most important point was explaining to my mom. How do I explain to my mom that I want to keep going into the ocean where there are sharks and all of that, and I still want to take photographs? My mom only used to say that, you've done it, why do you have to keep doing it again? So that was a bit tough, but because I wanted to do it, I did everything else in my life. That this is how it became after that. Every other project, every other work that I did came down to saving up so that I could go diving and I could own my shooting gear, and then I could dive more and shoot more. And every holiday that I took after that became a dive holiday. And everything that like if I would go for a friend's wedding, I would go and say, okay, where can I dive around that? And I would dive there. Or if I just had a break for 3-4 days, I would just go and dive more. So that actually gave me a lot of time and a lot of things. So a lot of opportunities to shoot. Then so what does my underwater gear include? So obviously everybody knows that there's a camera, there's a lens, there's battery, cards, and all that. But to shoot underwater, these are the main things these are the most basic things that you will need. Housing body, as you see, is what the camera sits in, and it's a airtight lock so that no water goes in, and there is a way to fix it so that the camera sits inside and the water doesn't go in. The dome port is actually what helps the lens and the camera see underwater. Like how you wear these swimming glasses, what it does to your eyes to be able to see inside a pool, the dome port does that for the camera. And then the strobes are like a flash underwater. These are also like underwater strobes built specifically to be taken underwater. So this is basically my most basic kit. This brand is the one that I own, the Icolite, and it is among the cheaper ones, the better one, the best one among the cheaper ones. But then there are many brands which make housings for lots of different cameras. So this is what I could get my hand on. This is what I could afford. But with underwater photography, one thing before I go into the next thing, there are many challenges. The biggest challenge is how you maintain this gear. Like we all take care of our camera gear, we keep it clean, we keep it dust free and all of that. The underwater gear comes in with a whole lot of new challenges. Like every part that fits in has a rubber o-ring that has to be sealed properly, cleaned properly. You can't even have like a hair fiber in it, because if anything is there like that, then water can leak in. So there are ways to like test how, if it is airtight, not airtight. And the scariest part is, apart from, or even if you do all of these things, no company will ever tell you that it is 100% waterproof. So it is about how you take care and how you set up. And every time you're going to shoot, it is a process of actually maintaining and shooting to setting up your gear with that much care. You have to do it like that. That is one side of what it takes to be to shoot underwater. Then there are many more challenges, obviously, like what makes underwater photography different from shooting on land. Water, I think if you have dived in a pool and you have worn your glasses and you've seen inside, it feels like it's a little bit, everything underwater is very magnified, which is true. So it is a little magnified. Focusing with the camera, now depending on the camera, the focusing ability of the camera, the focusing differs, because the water is a medium. Like air is a thinner medium, right? Water is a more solid medium. So then there are lots more objects. Like there is another object before your subject. Then, of course, motion. Like when you're standing on land, you're standing. But when you talk about underwater, everything is in moving, the fish, everything has a fluid motion. So to be able to be still in all of that, and then to be able to shoot, so that's a very big difference. Then the lighting, lighting is actually the trickiest part in underwater photography. There are many things. The way light plays underwater, the way you can use a strobe, how much of that flash reaches your subject, and all of that is of course uh, very challenging, and you learn that with experience. Expensive equipment, I think even wildlife photographers will agree that any kind of photography like this is going to be expensive. So yes, wildlife photography is expensive at its own level, and underwater. So, and then the light. Now there are many things about light. Of course, there is refraction in the water. So we need to take care of how that is going to work, and how you understand the light falling on your subject, and how that refraction works, and what the camera is understanding. Then the absorption of light. If you look at sunlight now, if you go in a pool where the sun is lit, where the sun is out, and the pool is lit well, it all seems like it's all well lit. But in the ocean, as you go deeper, the light is reducing, and it just keeps getting darker and darker and darker. So how does it work then? I mean, you will be surprised with the amount of light that reaches in quite a quite a few depths like that. But the light is reducing. So then how do you shoot? You can't just light up the whole coral reef. So you have to shoot, you have to use that light in a certain way. Color absorption is actually a very, very important thing. One thing that is very interesting, which fascinated me in the beginning, was that as you go down and deeper, the colors start to fade away. Basically, what's happening is that red is fading away. So then in all your photographs, you need to like add the color red back to get to a natural looking color, like what it really looks like. And you will see like what is bright red at the surface of the water on land or whatever else will become almost maroon, and it will lose all its color as you go deeper. So that's a very big challenge. But I dived a lot and I shot a lot to understand this. Like this image that you see over here, when you see it underwater, you can see that these colors are there because your eye is, of course, a magical thing that it can see those colors. But when you shoot it, these colors are not there. It didn't look like it was there. So then you shoot in a certain setting and then you bring those colors back. And that's a very big technical thing that you will learn slowly as you keep shooting. But that's a post-production class, which I think we can do another webinar in. So then I came back and then I said, okay, so now what do I do? Now I've been shooting, I've got my gear, uh, I have some money now, but how do I practice more? So then I started shooting people in swimming pools. So I made my little underwater studio inside a pool. Of course, we all have like video cameras and shooting, like smaller cameras where we can shoot in a pool and stuff. But then to take this big underwater housing inside the water and then inside a pool and shooting people, then you had to like try and get creative. So then I made like a studio and I started shooting some friends underwater. Like this is actually inside a pool, and it has there's a black black cloth that I've put, and that black cloth actually removes all the tiles from the tiles of the pool and the reflection of the water and all of that. So then she could actually float across in the water, which was so easy. Then this is also in a pool, and you can see that the surface of the pool is adding a reflection, which is really nice, and that's a nice way to play with it. This photograph actually took me a long time. So this was in South Africa, where I was shooting for a brand that makes sports training products. And this guy, this swimmer, I made him dive more than 70 times before I could nail this shot, because it had to be at the right time. The focus had to come in. There were so many things that I had to do in this. I had to get one person to go there, stand there, give me the focus, and I had my camera on half click, focus lock, moved back, then he jumped in, and I had to time it right, because it's just a fraction of a second that moment is there. But yeah, after 70 odd times I managed to do it, and he was patient enough to let me do it. Then of course I love pets, so then I said, let me shoot some dogs. I've shot a lot of dogs in India, but what happens with dogs is that they don't put their faces in. So there was one time I was in Thailand, and a friend of mine said, I know this one family that has a dog that actually puts his face in and swims underwater. So I said, I have to shoot this dog. So I contacted that family and I said, I want to shoot your dog in your pool if it's possible. They said, yeah, sure. So this is Bruno, and I went to their house and they were very happy to have me there because they could get these photographs. And it was a great day because when you shoot in a pool, you can use like natural light very well. So like, I like this shot of Bruno. He has this toy. He loves that toy, and he will go down into the pool, swim with it, as long as he can get that toy. So that was a great time. Now that all of that diving and shooting in the pool and all of that gave me enough practice, and then I kept diving in different parts of the world, kept saving up, trying to dive. This photograph, there is a little story. Actually, from now, all my photographs will have some stories that I can tell you. So what you see in this photograph is, there are also, of course, lots of sharks. You see that little boat on top, which that's the boat we were traveling in. And you see this metal ball in the center. So this is when I was in South Africa. I was in Durban, and I said, okay, Durban doesn't have so much diving talk about South Africa, you'll think of Cape Town and the great white sharks and all of that. But that is actually, they dive in cages and all of that. But I wanted to dive in the open water. So I said, let me see if Durban has any diving. And there was. So I found this place. I said, okay, let me call that guy. I called that person. He said, yeah, we're diving tomorrow. You can come. I had no idea what kind of diving they do in Durban. I just knew that I could dive. I had my underwater gear and my camera. So let me go. So off I went. And when I reached there, he said, okay, here the diving is a little different. We will be in the open water. There will be sharks. These are quite large and bigger type of sharks. So there are a few things that you need to follow. So obviously, like he gave me a brief. He said, okay, the funny part of this story is that his instructions to me for what I had to follow to dive over here was, first thing he said is, don't look like bait and don't act like bait. So I was like, what do you mean by that? I mean, obviously I'm not going to try to look like bait. He said, no, just be aware of your surroundings. If I ever point at you, that means there's a shark coming right at you. And just slowly turn around, breathe out from your regulator and all that. So I said, okay. And it sounded a little like, okay, how, like till then in my life, I had seen one shark at a time or maybe like two somewhere at a distance and all of that. So I said, okay, I've seen sharks before. So now here what happens in this diving is that they take bait inside that metal ball that you're seeing there. They don't feed the sharks, but the bait is there just to bring the sharks in. But we are in the open water. We are in the middle of nowhere. Like we've gone out into the ocean. We are not over any reef, nothing. We're just in the blue. They let this bait ball in, and the bait ball is about 10 meters. And then you wait on the boat for about half an hour, 1 hour. And once you see the sharks coming, you jump in, and all you're doing is hanging around that bait ball. So I said, okay, this is great. Now I'm around this bait ball, and we'll see. There were like these many sharks here. So I said, okay, great. This is nice. Only thing that I didn't know is that what he didn't tell me is that the number of sharks could range from 10 or 15 that we could come across to hundreds. And that day, these are all oceanic blacktips that you're seeing here. And that day they were about, I obviously I didn't count, but there must have been 50 or 60 sharks all around us. And I had my camera. The first 15 minutes of the dive, I'm just frozen. I'm just looking at what I'm experiencing. And I couldn't believe that there were so many sharks all around me and all of that. And halfway through the dive, my instructor comes to me and he's like, hello, you have a camera. Why don't you shoot with it? So I said, oh, yeah, fine, let me shoot. And then I obviously, composed myself. I said, okay, let me figure it out. And that was the day that I got this photograph that the presentation started with. This is an oceanic blacktip. And yes, he was coming straight at me. He was, but just from a photography side point of view, I had one strobe. So the light that you see on his, the right side of the shark's face is lit from my flash. So he was actually that close that my flash could reach. The rest of him is lit from like the actual natural sunlight. So yeah, it was a great, it was actually challenging, but it was great. And I got this great photograph, so I was happy. But South Africa has had like a very big influence in my diving photography life. So I'm just going to share some more stories from South Africa and then other places. But one thing I want to tell you before I show you the next photograph is there are times underwater that you will be like the marine life or the subject that you're shooting is in perfect position and everything is right. But there is either particle in the water or the sun was too much or the strobe has not reached. There's so many factors, right? And it's all in motion. So I was at this one place where it's called the sardine run, where there are lots of sardines that are in the water and everything wants to eat the sardines. So there are the whales going for the sardines and there are the sharks attacking it, the dolphins attacking it. And you are in the middle of all of that, seeing all this. So that's another experience. But what's amazing is there are these birds over there and they dive in to actually eat the sardines as well. So on that trip, there were like some 7-8 photographers and all of us were like, we have to get a shot of that bird with a sardine in its mouth underwater. And that's a photograph that many people have taken before. But all of us there took it up as a challenge. Everybody tried. There were lots of birds diving in, and nobody got it. I have got a photograph, which is the next one, which I'm going to show you. But it's not the best photograph, but it has achieved the purpose of what I wanted that day. So here's the bird. The bird is dived in. You can see from the top. And he's got this sardine, and you can see in its beak, he's got the sardine. And I was the only one who got it on the trip. The bird's wings are overexposed because sunlight was too much and all of that. But I don't care. I like this bit because the face is fine. The face is in focus. The eye is in focus. And you can see the sardine. So that was a good, fun time. Then there's another aspect of underwater photography, which I'm going to talk about in my next photograph, which is very interesting. And it also adds a new perspective and it makes the photograph look nice. So this photograph that you're seeing now, it's a shipwreck that we were at. This is in the Maldives. And the first part of the challenge obviously was to get everybody on this boat. Like it's an old rusted boat, and to get everybody on it, and everybody struggled and somehow got on it just for me to be able to take the photograph. But what is amazing, and what actually none of these people on that boat realized till they actually saw the full photograph, that this could actually be like this. So the one thing that is great in underwater photography is not just completely underwater, but to do over under. So which means you have a photograph which is half above the water and half under the water, and that can give you a different perspective. Now I'm going to show you this photograph in full. It's actually, this is what it actually looks like. So that is where they are standing, and then you see the whole shipwreck below it. And none of these people in that photograph knew that this was going to be like this. So it turned out to be a great day because the visibility was good. Obviously, I'm not going to get too technical because that's for another discussion, but to shoot a photograph like this, a lot of factors play in to try and get the focus more or less right on the top and the bottom. There are lots of different things, but we'll get into that maybe another time. But yeah, these over-under shots make such a big difference. They can give you a perspective of how large the ocean is or how interesting this could be. Like just the top of the boat didn't make it look like the boat could be so big. But then when you have this over-under shot, it just makes it look for what it really is. So yeah, we were really lucky that day because the conditions were calm. You see the water is like at a nice level and we could get this photograph. The sky was nice. The sun was there. So it helped me get this shot. So here another thing to note is that my strobes don't make a difference. They will never reach. So I had my strobes off. And then there were lots of other camera settings that worked with this. Then the next photograph that I'm going to show you is again in South Africa. When you talk about sharks that are dangerous, you will talk about things like the great white, bull shark and all of that. You'll also talk about a shark called the tiger shark. Now, I had never seen a tiger shark. The earlier South Africa diving that I told you that I did in Durban, the same place where he told me don't look like bait, don't act like bait. In that same place, I was diving again a couple of years later. And so we were diving and he said, there is a chance that today we might see tiger sharks because he's been seeing tiger sharks around. So I said, I hope we do. But the one thing that we don't do is like when we are diving with that bait, we keep our depth at 10 meters. We never go below. So he said, yeah, try and stay there. And we never go. One of the instructions that he gave me, which was very, very important, is you don't swim horizontal. Normally, when you're diving, you will swim horizontal. But that day, he had said, don't swim horizontal, be vertical, because for a shark, then you are not another fish or anything else. You are some other object. So it's going to ignore you and go away because you're not food. So we were diving that day and there were lots of oceanic blacktips like in the previous photo that I showed you. And then he pointed at a distance and he said, look, there's a tiger shark. And the tiger shark never came close. It just kept circling at a distance. Now, I saw it at a distance, but I said, okay, now I can't do anything to that. But there was a moment when there was a nice sunlight and I wanted to get a silhouette shot of that bait ball and, like the shark swimming around. So I've gone a little bit lower than what we were supposed to go and I've turned horizontal and now I'm shooting upwards. So I've turned horizontal. I can see Walter, who I was diving with, and the sharks and all that. And suddenly I see through, when I'm looking through my camera, I see him swimming down fast at me. So I thought something happened, and I look up, and he holds me and turns me straight to show me that a tiger shark was coming straight at me. And when he turned me straight, the tiger shark actually turned and went down. And me, in that moment, I didn't know what to do. So I held my camera in front of my face, and I went click, 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 click. And I got a whole series of photos that day. And that gave me my first tiger shark photo. And this is that tiger shark. And it's obviously not the best settings because I was shooting for something against the light and all that. But it's still it's a great memory, and it's my first tiger shark. So it worked really well. So after shooting a lot of this, I met a lot of people when I traveled around the world, and I learned a lot more about this guy Walter that I met in South Africa. That's him, and this is a potato bass, or a type of grouper that you see in South Africa. What he is doing is something that you should never do. Don't touch marine life. But this story with him and this grouper is very interesting. This grouper knows him, recognizes him. Every time we go to dive in that same spot, this grouper comes to him and just swims next to him. So if he keeps his hand like this, the grouper will come here, and then they both just swim together. It's like a dance. So they are friends. So they are allowed to touch each other. It's fine. But when I met him, I said, okay, I learned a lot while speaking to him. Then I met a lot more people around the world who worked with conservation and saving marine life and all of that. So I said, let me just start shooting for you guys. So I went on I volunteered to go on a lot of trips where I could just shoot and give them good quality footage to use for those, all the conservation things that they were trying to do. So this is something that's very interesting. This is a blotched stingray, both of them. To me, it's like this was shot during the night, they are lit with my strobes. But what is interesting, what is a good point to note, is that everything that you see below them, that's the coral reef, and all that is coral. But all of it below is dead coral. All of it is broken and dead coral. There is beautiful marine life over it. This stingray is swimming around, and I've got a nice photograph. But what we've done to the planet is that. So this photograph was actually used to show that this is dead coral, and that's how it is bleached and died over the years and all that. Then the other thing that I started shooting was sharks that were like, when we do, a lot of illegal fishing happens around the world, and the fishing hooks sometimes get stuck in the shark's mouth. So when I was diving in different places, I started noticing that. So then I got you'll see these shark photos. There are bruises on the sharks. These are all places where, these sharks are not threatening because I'm there in the water and they haven't done anything to me. Actually, I mean, they say this, right? We are the real predators, human beings. So these are actually the bruises done by the fishing lines that were stuck in their mouths and all of that. And the next photograph that I will show you, actually, I won a competition, a conservation photography competition. So this was, again, do you see that thing in its mouth? It's actually a fishing hook which has been stuck for a long time, because even the rust, it's rusting now, and that has left a stain on the shark. So that it's quite sad when you actually start noticing these things, but these creatures are amazing. Then I went on another trip, which was quite interesting. That trip was, we all know what a starfish is, right? So this is a nice looking starfish. It's called a crown of thorn starfish. So I said, yeah, this is nice, and I've taken lots of photos of it and all that. Then I found out about this starfish, and this particular starfish actually destroys reefs. Like, their defense mechanism is to spawn in like hundreds and thousands, and so because they multiply in those numbers, they go ahead and they just eat up the reefs and all of that. So there was an operation where I went and documented and made a film and about actually removing this starfish. There are many ways to remove it, but this whole trip that you will see, we are actually removing the starfish, and we are killing them, which is bad, I know, but we're killing them, and then We're burying them so that they don't destroy the reefs. But I mean, I know are overfishing and threat to them, and now they are destroying the reefs, which is in turn affecting everyone else. But this is all serious stuff. This was just to show you that. Hi, can you hear me now? Sorry. Yeah, this was just to show you all that my underwater photography found a direction, and all these things that I did for like conservation and all of that actually helped me move with just shooting underwater and just for myself, and actually go towards a direction that made a difference. So all these trips and all these things that I've shot actually taught me a lot about the ocean, taught me a lot about our planet, and that was great. But I'm going to tell you one last story and one last photograph before we get into the last bit of the presentation. Um, there was one time that I was in South Africa again, and we could see these whales at a distance. And that whole day, so when you're actually diving with whales, or you're trying to see whales, you're on a boat, but you stay far away. And then when you see the whale, you go like you just take the boat parallel to the whale at a distance, and then you go further away, and you get off from the boat slowly, and you hope that the whale doesn't change its direction and comes towards you. It could, it may not. It's a hit and miss. So we did that once, we did that twice, we did that thrice. The third time, so we got into the water. We have to get into the water quietly, and we swam in different directions. So this other guy who had gone in the other direction, the whale actually came near him, and he came back to and the whale just went by. He came back to the boat, and he was super excited. He said, "It's not just the whale; it's a humpback whale, and it's got its calf with it, the baby." And so we were excited. Now there is a baby and that, but obviously when the whales have their calf with them, they are very protective. So we thought we would not be able to see that mother and calf again, but she was hanging around. So we said, okay, then let's try to see this again. So we went again, and we went down into the water, and again we swam in two different directions. And the whale didn't come towards me, but she again went towards him. So then I just said, okay, let me just swim back to the boat. And I was swimming, and the captain of my boat said, why don't you just swim in a different direction and just let's see what happens? We don't know. So I swam on the back of the boat in a different direction, just completely aimless. There is no reason why I had to do that. And so I was swimming like this. This mother and baby calf whale came here, and they came right in front, and I met them here. I turned, and we swam. We swam for a good 2 minutes, and 2 minutes is a lot. So I was swimming alongside the whale and the mother and the calf, and I was taking for like a nice long video of it. Then I realized I need a photograph, so I changed the settings, and I was swimming along with them. The mother didn't feel threatened. The calf didn't feel threatened. Normally, what the mother does is, if this is the calf and this is the mother, and if somebody comes like this, the mother will come in between. She didn't do that. She let us swim like this, and that's what gave me my next photograph that you're going to see. So that's a humpback whale, and if you look closely, you can see the calf, and she was she just learned. She was still learning how to swim. She was just there swimming alongside the mother, and it was a magical experience. It changed a lot in the way I looked at marine life, and they didn't run away, and they didn't feel threatened, and that's what gave this photograph. But I mean, this is towards the end of what I want to tell you guys, but there are a few points that I think everybody should know before getting into underwater photography. A whole lot of people say, how do I shoot underwater? Can I get into it? And this, that. Yes, of course, you can take a camera and you can get into, like, you can shoot in a pool and you can do all of that. But to be able to shoot underwater in the ocean, the most important thing is to learn how to scuba dive. That's the first thing. So learn how to scuba dive, become a good scuba diver before you actually get into picking up a camera and shooting with it underwater. The main reason being, you need to be able to be comfortable in the ocean. it's very important to realize and understand that we don't belong in the ocean. We are land creatures. So if you're going into the ocean, we are guests. They are welcoming us. And so if we behave well, then it's going to let us experience that well, right? But scuba diving, learning how to scuba dive, learning how to be a good scuba diver and a responsible scuba diver is the most important thing. Of course, the second point that I've written here, don't do it because it's cool to post on Instagram, is something that I tell everybody, all new photographers, all my friends who are shooting or who want to get into photography. Don't be a photographer who just post and get those likes. Yes, of course, it's nice to have those likes and the recognition, but the more you start doing this for yourself and to make better imagery or whatever for yourself, the more you're going to enjoy the process. Of course, if you want to become a marine photographer, then learn about the ocean first, understand what the oceans are to this planet, and then once you fall in love with it, you will do a lot to protect it and all of that. Then there is I'm going to tell you a last one bit before we get into. There's one more video that I want to show you. So a lot of these things that happened in my life led me to working with conservation, being an underwater photographer, and then I had these two of my friends who, another is a banker, but the three of us were all divers, and we said we should. The only way to let people learn about this thing is to take people on a trip, take them diving, show them what the underwater world is like, and then hopefully they will share it with more people, and that's how we can spread the knowledge of underwater and marine life and all that. So documenting marine life in a nice way became important as step one. Step two in my life was to take more people diving and then actually get them to love the ocean and all of that. So then three of us started a company called Simply Breathe, and that company, basically we do diving and meditation retreats. So we started taking people diving, we taught them about the ocean, we made nice videos for them and all of that. So, and we did mindfulness meditation, so that mindfulness meditation actually helped people learn about being more mindful and all of that. So there is a video that I want to show you all about that trip, which I'm going to do now in a second. But that trip actually is, this video is going to show you what it's like to be on a Simply Breathe trip. So yeah, this last quote that I'm going to leave you all with is something that we all should understand. But that's just a little bit of my journey and how underwater photography has changed my life and given me a direction, and that's what this is. Over to you, Mithun.
Hey, Bhushan, I just don't have words, man. Absolutely fantastic. I think
Thanks.
everybody agrees. I think everybody should give him a standing ovation. Because and I want to clap for you, Bhushan. It was an absolute fantastic show. Absolutely fantastic. You know, absolutely fantastic. I just don't have words. For a moment, I was thinking. I was actually in the water with you. Absolutely. You-
Thank
I,
you.
I really don't know if you are following the chat that people were putting in. There is Mr. Srinivas Murthy who's actually said that you might have just influenced a lot of young minds, and he himself did some diving in 2012 where he did not have a underwater camera, but even with GoPro, it brought in memories. So I think you touched a heart of a lot of people, Bhushan. And
Nice. That's
let,
good
let,
to know.
let me tell you this: that if there was no pandemic, I would have definitely come and hugged you, man. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Right. So you just look at the people. They're just saying it was lack of words. Fantastic. And I think very very few people actually show the way you have shown. There is passion seen in your work. There is conservation. There is social message. There is so many things. Absolutely. And I think what I liked the most, I think a lot of people did share in the comments as well, that the mention that we are guests in the ocean. So let's behave like guests. Absolutely fantastic. Very very powerful statement. I think
Which is true.
if mankind understands all this, the nature and the world will be a different place. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Bhushan. Like I said at the start of the session, for a lot of you, this is going to be an experience of lifetime. I'm speechless. Bhushan, absolutely fantastic. Okay, so before we get into the Q&A, Shri Kumar, do you want to give a couple of words?
Yes, sure, Mithun. And Bhushan, it is a wonderful experience and out of the world. And yeah, to the audience, I would like to thank all the attendees who have turned up in such great numbers today. Thank you, everyone who participated overwhelmingly and made this event a great success. And again, once again, thank you, Bhushan, for making an excellent presentation. Your versatility in photography and cinematography has indeed left us awestruck. Now, to
Thank you. Thank
attendees,
you.
yeah, we'll be attendees. We would be sending you the recording of the entire session of this webinar. Yeah, you can also go to the Facebook page of Honeycomb Creative Support to see our live videos. I hope all of you have liked this webinar and the webinars that we conduct. Your valuable feedback is important to us. So kindly share your reviews on the link provided in the chat box. Also, you can write to us at events@honeycombindia.net. Thank you once again. I would now request Mithun to take over with the question and answers section. Looking forward to see you all tomorrow at 7:30 for another webinar. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Shri Kumar. Like I said, I don't have words. Bhushan, it's par excellence. Absolutely fantastic. I'm sorry,
Thank
I'm
you. Thank
repeating
you.
like a broken record, but I just cannot believe what I saw. That's beautiful. Okay, never mind. Like Shikumar mentioned, all the recordings will be provided. Participation certificate will come into you. Do not worry. It will take a couple of days. You don't have to worry. Just in case if you don't get it after by end of this week, please drop us an email at events@honeycombindia.net. We'll definitely get in touch with you. But there's one thing that we want to tell you, that as a gratitude for joining us on a weekday, joining this wonderful webinar by Bhushan. Bhushan and we curated, links. He personally wrote down a lot and lots of, reference links which he follows or which he has followed in the past, which he thought would be beneficial for a lot of aspiring photographers, or those who said I have never tried, or those who said I have tried sometimes. There will be a PDF document that we will be sending to all of you who have joined the webinar today as bonus from Bhushan himself and Honeycomb. So that will also come to you as an email, and I can bet you that those 2 pages of document that you'll receive, most of the questions that you answered will get you'll get automatically answered as you look, because there are YouTube videos, there are international photographers and underdrivers that he follows, Indian ones, so you can definitely get absolutely value out of those documents. So having said that, Bhushan, shall we go into the Q&A?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, like Sri Kumar was mentioning, it is right now broadcast live on YouTube. So I thought, let me pick up something from YouTube first. So there was a question which was very interesting. Would you ever want to try underwater fashion photography?
I've actually, I don't know if you caught that part of the presentation where I showed you a few photographs of some people underwater.
Right.
So I have shot a lot of fashion underwater, but and I do have friends who shoot underwater in India who actually shoot fashion and they get featured in magazines and all that. But for me, what I've done is, with respect to people, I like to make something, as long as that whole association of shooting another person underwater is not just about fashion, but something new that we can create. So most of it has always been about creating some other art which works and all of that. It is fashion at some level, but it's not shooting fashion for a brand as such. But I have done lots of that. I have shot a lot of people. I have shot a lot of people dressed up in different outfits and all of that. So, but yeah, if someone pays me, I'll shoot. No problem.
Right. Bhushan, can I request you to stop the screen so that people can see you on big screen?
Yeah, of course.
Great. Okay. More questions coming in. We would like to answer as many as we can, like we said. So there are people who are waiting for your 2-page document. Yes, definitely it will come in. So a very, very interesting question, which you mentioned at the start. How did you convince your mother?
I think I'm still convincing her. No, I think with my family, it has just gone a whole circle of me just going ahead and doing more of this, and then them like hearing about it from other people, and then saying that, okay, now this is actually good because he's doing this. Someone else has said, "Did you see Bhushan's photograph?" So then when they start hearing about other people, they became a lot more accepting of it. But the fear is there. Like, we all have this fear of the sharks and all that. So my mom will always be worried about it. That is not. That's not going to go. It's not. I haven't convinced my mom. I'm convincing. It's still going on.
but I don't know. You seem to be saying that the shark and all that. You talk as if we see cats and dogs on the streets. So it's very interesting. I think that's your life.
It is like that. It is like that. When you dive more and you actually see it, then you realize that the most important thing to remember is that we are not food for any of this marine life. We are not food at all. So if we behave in a certain way, like I'm saying, even something small, I'll give you a small example. If you go to like say a fine dine restaurant, right? You're not going to go there and behave out of what that place is like. You will, maybe if there's a dress code, you'll follow the dress code. If there is a way that you're supposed to speak, you will speak in that. If you're supposed to sit when a show is going on, you will sit. If we are ready to behave in all these ways in these places, then we just need to understand that when we're underwater, there are certain ways that we need to behave and just follow that. And the minute we do that, it'll then you start realizing that none of the marine life is interested in us, and we are not food for them. So it's all safe and good.
I think that's the next question that somebody has asked. How did you overcome all those fears?
I think that the fear what happened eventually was that the fear has turned to respect. It's not that the fear is gone. I haven't overcome the fear. Every time I go to dive and I jump in, first the thing that hits you is the expanse of the ocean and how big it actually is. That is our planet, right? 70% of our planet is the ocean. And then you realize that we are actually living on the periphery of the ocean. So it's a very small part that human beings are living in. And then when you see every time I see a shark or every time I see a predator, it does feel like it is. Uh, I mean, there is fear, but the fear slowly switches to respect, and then you start respecting it a lot more. So then it's not a fear anymore, and it's. I mean, it's wrong to say I've overcome it. It's just that I've understood it in a different way. So accepting that fear worked in that way. That's all.
I think Ria, you had a subsequent same question on this, that you jump in water, tried this before, but you still have the fear of unknown. I think Bhushan just mentioned that he's not overcome, but there's a different way of doing it. I think you should try it out, Ria. I think be up for a surprise. At least after this session, a lot of people will get inspired. I'm sure. Up to what depth underwater photography is possible?
So, see, if you're looking at natural light, then it will depend on many conditions and all of that. But with scuba diving, that is your commercial scuba diving, like the one that we all can go and do, you can get trained to go at many depths. So, I'm trained, I'm certified to go up to 40 meters. And I've actually shot at 40 meters, which is 100 and some feet. So, and sunlight has actually reached there, but obviously it's a lot more, lot lesser and all of that. And then my strobes I had to use and all of that. But there are so many factors that come into how much light is there and what you can shoot. Like the sunlight on a bright and sunny day, it might reach a little deeper, but even then the particles in the water make a difference and all of that. So there is no one specific thing. It depends on that day, in those conditions, where you're diving, the depth and the amount of light will depend on all those factors. So I can't tell you how deep you can go. There is a thing called technical diving where I have friends who do that, where they have gone up to like 100, 200 meters, and there it's pitch black once you go that deep. So, but I think they have actually seen the graduation of light completely disappearing to darkness. So you have to go a lot more deeper than what I have gone to actually for there to be no light. So
right. Wonderful. So there are a lot of questions on which lenses do you use, what are the camera settings inside the water, if you want to touch upon quickly.
So I have a Canon 5D Mark IV, and the most common lens that most people use to shoot underwater is a 16-35. Like shooting landscape, it's nice to have a wide, lens so that you can get the expanse of what you're shooting. Plus, a lot of the marine life, like a whale or something, you need a wide lens. But there are also like tiny things. Like I haven't shown that today because of what this presentation was about. But there is a lot of macro underwater as well. So if I'm shooting that, then I have a 100 macro. But you can get a housing for whatever camera you own. There are housings for most of it. So the casing that you put the camera in is available for most cameras. And then depending on the lens you want to use, you can get, the dome that I showed you in the camera parts that I have. The dome has a mount. So the mount you can get for whatever lens you want. So if you want to use your regular 24-70 underwater, then there is a mount for it. So the most popular one is 16-35, which is what I use. And for all my macro stuff, I have a 100 with respect to settings, that's a very, very wide topic. I can't get into the specifics. But one of the things is that your aperture is quite open. Like you're shooting at 7, 8, sometimes more than that. Because, underwater, you will need to do that for it to, because your focus and all that varies on so many different factors. You can't keep it too shallow. But that said, when you shoot macro, like if I've shot like tiny crabs which are the size of a small dot, and those you need to keep your aperture low enough so that you can get the focus right on that subject. So that that technical bit is actually, I think we'll need one more webinar.
Absolutely. No. So that's something that I want to let everybody know. I know that a lot of people are asking, can we get details? Can we get a class? Of course, yes. So that's the idea as well. So once Bhushan is back from his IPL, an itinerary, which will be probably by mid of November. After that, we'll definitely try to arrange something, which will give a lot more insight into it. And like we mentioned at the start of the session, this is not a class. This is an experience sharing. This is for inspiring a lot of people to consider this as one of the genres of photography as well. So I think that's something that we want to do. Okay. There are a lot of questions on the video. I think the videos that you shown were absolutely fantastic. So people wanted to know where was it shot. I know it's multiple locations, but then anything that specific you want to share?
The first video that I showed you with the sharks is in South Africa, and it's actually 5 hours from Durban. You go to Eastern Cape, and there, like I said, that dive, we were the first ones to ever dive in the history of that dive site. It is not a dive site. We were just in the ocean, and we had coordinates for this place, and we just went and we dived. We had no idea what was going to happen. So if that has become a dive site today and people are diving there, it'll always be that we were the first ones to dive there. So that's a good tag to have. But that whole video was shot on that one dive in that 40 minutes that we were underwater. All of that you saw in the first video, including the end when you can see the water, the top of the reef, all the sharks, everything was shot in that one dive in 40 minutes.
Wow.
The other video was in Maldives, the last one. But that is multiple dive sites over multiple islands and all of that. So
right. So a lot of people want to know, all these equipments that you buy, the housing and all, are they very expensive?
Yeah. So that is the biggest challenge in this. My underwater shooting gear, if I have to make a total of it, without the camera and the lens, I've spent about $6,000 on it.
Wow.
This doesn't pay. That does not accounted for the camera and the lens that I need. Which, if I have a Canon 5D Mark IV and then the lens, that's a lot more. But there are different brands, of the underwater housing. So I've chosen a brand which is exactly in between. Like among the cheaper ones, it's the best. And there are many more expensive brands and there are many more cheaper brands. The main thing to keep in mind is that the risk is, like, I use my own camera, right? So the risk is of, if the water goes in, then your camera is dead. There's nothing you can do about it. So the reason why a lot of people spend more and get better quality ones is just so that the risk is less. With my brand, the brand that I have is Icolite, which is I've been using it now for 8 years and it's been amazing. But if you maintain it well, then it's good. But there is Icolite, there is Aquatica, there is Gates, there is Nauticam. All these are different brands which are really good.
Yeah. So
there's actually one website called backscatter.com, which I think is there in that PDF which I sent you to, which everybody's going to get. That website might not be a place to get, but to buy it because it's in America. But there you can do your pick and choose. Like, you have this camera, you want to use this lens. What are the housing options available? It'll give you all the brands. Right. So that's a good website to actually see and say, okay, I have this camera, let me put this. And maybe if you want to buy also, you want to say, okay, I want to try and that's a good website to put all that together.
Right. Absolutely. I think a lot of people will naturally find it the cost as deterrent, but I think if you have passion and if you can get into it, there's nothing like it. Because there was one question that I saw that these equipments are very expensive. So do you get any sponsorship for projects or anything of that sort? Any grants?
So there are some. I haven't got any, but there are grants. But with whole underwater thing, it's never going to pay you enough for it to become something that you can pursue full time. The way it has worked for me is that I have worked hard on all the other types of photography that I do, earned my money, and then done this. Like when I came back from Thailand, it took me 2 years to just put money aside to buy the house. I mean, I had my sister who helped me get the housing and then whatever else. But overall, the process that it takes is a lot. You can't just like say, okay, this much money is, you can get a cheaper one and all that. You have to buy a decent housing. You have to spend on it, and it's not really there are, but you do get housings and cheaper cameras today which are really good. Like Olympus has some cameras which you can shoot underwater with the casing for the Olympus cameras, which are really good. So it depends on what you want to do with it. For me, it was, I'll tell you, the cost is such a big factor for everybody. For me, I had one camera. I had the 5D Mark III back then and the 5D Mark IV, which I could shoot with. So I said, okay, let me buy a housing for this because this is the only camera I have. I have one camera. I can shoot with that one camera. Let me shoot with that underwater. That's it. So what do I need for that? I didn't have the money to buy a second camera. So I spent my money on buying the housing.
Wonderful. Did you encounter microplastics and oils in ocean when you have dived through in your experience?
Microplastics, not in terms of what I could feel myself, but a lot of the trips that I've been on, there are conservationists who've told me that there is microplastic in this, and like there is the extent of it and all that. Oil, no. Luckily, I haven't. So, but I do hope I don't encounter it, and we can actually cut the amount of that. But with respect to plastic, generally, like not microplastic, but just generally plastic, I've encountered a lot of that. That happens in every dive. Once you become a diver, in every dive, you go down and you come up with a lot of the junk that you want to like put back on land because it's not supposed to be there. So there are many dives. Like some of my friends actually carry like a netted waste bag. So they keep picking up stuff, putting it in their dive, through the dive, and then they bring it up. And it's amazing the amount of garbage you can collect underwater.
Right, absolutely. There was an interesting question. At what age did you dive first?
Means I have to tell you how old I am now. So I dived first time in 2006, and at that 24. Yeah.
So now you are told us the age. Otherwise, we will not.
I didn't tell you my age. You still have to do some maths to get my age.
Right. Okay. So Vinay, let's do one thing. Let's put in the second poll, on the screen. So there will be a second poll that will come in. In the meanwhile, Bhushan, if you can, please mention those gear names, the companies, and the website. There are a lot of people asking. So in the chat box, for them to know, Aquatica and other things that you mentioned.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So there is a poll on your screen. Do you print your photographs at all? We would want to know. Do you print any of your photographs? I do print my photographs for sure. So I just wanted to know if you do print as well. 10 more seconds before we close. Wonderful. I'm seeing a skewed response. Okay. Just let me share the results. Okay, so 32% do print, and the rest of you, do not print but want to know more. So all those of you who do not print or want to know more, please get in touch with the teams. Definitely, we will help you. You can write us at events@honeycomb.india.net, or there are some numbers that we mentioned on the chat. Definitely reach out to them. Okay, Bhushan, so moving on, more questions for you. In fact, there are a lot of questions for you. So let me, what kind of fitness levels and health requirements are there for underwater photography?
I'm only going to talk with respect to diving in the ocean and shooting marine life, because underwater today is a lot of like different things. You don't need to be fit like an athlete, but like I'm not super fit, but when you learn diving, there is a certain amount of effort and skill that it'll take, and you need to be, once you learn it, the fitter you are, the better you'll be able to do it. But it's like everybody can do it at their own level. Learning diving is not tough. Like everybody can learn how to dive. That's what I feel. But once you learn how to dive, then you can pick up your camera after you become good. So then it's easy, then it's not so, you don't need to be that fit. But generally, because you're underwater, you have the scuba gear and this, that. If you're fit, then it's better for you. So then you experience it better. So to do underwater photography, I feel is easier than doing nature and wildlife, because once you're in the water, there is no weight. All this gear that you carry on land, it's on land till you reach the boat. And once you jump into the water, you're zero. So then it's all light. Like there are times that my camera it clipped on to my PCD, but I've let it go. And then I've just adjusted something and I've held it back. The camera is just slowly floating down. It's not like on land where I can drop it. So there was no weight at all. So that is the nice thing about underwater. And then once you're inside, it's peace. So that way it's the fitness level is something that is a personal choice, but it's not so difficult. It's easier than what the other speakers on this panel are doing.
Right. No, I don't know the ease with at which you mentioned this. I think it's a passion that speaks. Like I was telling you, sometime back, all that scuba pictures that you shown in the Maldives, specifically in that video, brought in the memories of the scuba that I tried a couple of years back, precisely 5 years back in Canada. It was a Georgian bay. It was ice cold water. That whole suit made me super excited to put in. But as we put in, it was like it was like suffocation. Yeah, it was somebody choking the. And then imagine that you have to jump into that icy cold water, and then But believe me, I can relive what you were just mentioning. Because the moment we went in, of course there was no corals and all, but there were more of shipwrecks. But I had a Kodak small, there's use and throw camera with which I'd reel. It was amazing. It was beyond words. It's definitely very difficult. I mean, I know the ease at which you're talking, but I think nothing is impossible if you really want to make it happen. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. So there are a lot of people asking where in India, where in Mumbai, where in places can we learn scuba? Do you have any recommendations?
You can learn scuba in most big cities in India. There are dive shops everywhere. With respect to learning scuba, you can do in Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi. All of these cities have good dive shops. I can probably make a list of some of the good ones and send it. But the diving bit, you can do the pool. So it's a 4-part process to do the first level certification. You can definitely do in whichever city you are. There will be a good dive shop. You can do the first 2 parts, which is doing the theory and doing the pool training to learn how to use the gear. The next 2 parts are actually diving in the ocean. So you can do this part in the city, and then you'll have to travel to a place near the ocean, which like there is Goa, there is in Andamans, Pondicherry has some diving. In Karnataka near Murdeshwar, there is diving. If you're looking at good diving and where I can see marine life then obviously Andaman is amazing. Andaman and Nicobar Islands are amazing. Then the Lakshadweep is amazing. But Pondicherry is not bad. Goa has good and bad days. So there are a lot of places to dive like that. I live in Bangalore. There's no ocean near me. So this has happened in my life. So I think it's possible.
Right. So Mithali and a lot of you who asked this question, we will try and see if Bhushan can mention some of those names, and we'll try to include that into the 2-page document itself, so that you get some additional information. Thank you for asking, and thank you, Bhushan, for answering that. The questions, I know it's all around the camera. I know there are different people who will have different requirements, but which camera is best for underwater photography, and what are the minimum EXIF settings? I don't know if you can answer that, but minimum EXIF settings for photography.
So it's very tough to say which camera is good. I think that at the end of the day, a smaller camera, a point and shoot camera has also taken some great photos. And my 5D Mark IV has taken some great photos. There are better cameras than that as well. I can only tell you like what setting I would put my camera on before I jump in. The underwater housing that I have has I can change everything in the camera except change the battery and change the card. Like I can do that much underwater. So I have the option of actually tweaking everything. But with when it's a good sunny day, when I'm shooting underwater, my aperture would be at like say 8, 7, 8. My shutter would be between 200, 300, depending on what I'm shooting. If it's too fast, then I adjust that. And yeah, then you play around with the ISO. But the ISO is never too high because the quality needs to be good. But the ISO is not too low as well because the light is reducing as you go deeper. But like I said, this is very specific to one day and one moment in that day to actually shoot. But in terms of cameras, there are so many cameras that shoot really well. Like the Olympus, there is this TG6 and TG7 cameras, which there are people who shoot only macro with, and I can promise you, I have seen photographs shot with that, which look much better than what I have shot with my 5D Mark IV. So it's not. I don't think it's just a camera thing. It's a lot to do with how you understand the light and how you. It's not that there is one setting that you can put and then just keep shooting.
Right.
Every day, every dive, every moment, that time is changing. Like if there is, there are times that I've gone diving and I'm shooting and then it gets cloudy and it's raining. That changes the whole scene. Like I think that happens on land as well, but I feel that it affects it a lot more underwater because the water is acting like a medium. So if there is more sunlight, the sunlight is spread in the water. So there are lots of different factors. So I mean, I can't give you one specific thing, but
absolutely. I mean, I think it's a personal choice, but yeah, I mean, it's good to know. So there's a question: where do you dive usually? Which part of the world? I know you mentioned South Africa, Maldives, but anything more that you want to let us know?
I've dived a lot in many places. Maldives is actually the most convenient because before Corona, there's a direct flight from Bangalore, there's a direct flight from Bombay, and it's just 1.5 hours away. And the diving is absolutely fantastic there. And it used to be like all of us used to think that it's a expensive place and there are only like fancy resorts. But if you are okay with going and staying on a local island, then it's really cheap. So where the locals live on certain islands, right? And they have now developed guest houses which have turned into like 2-3 star property hotels in their local island. So there are certain things that you have to follow because you're on the local island. Like there is no alcohol. There is, you have to you can be in your swimwear only near the beach. You can't, because it's a Muslim country and all that. But if you follow all of that, then a local island trip to Maldives is really cheap. So I've gone a lot to Maldives. I have done a lot of diving in South Africa, Thailand. These have been my most, the places that I've dived most. Then Sri Lanka has some good diving. I've dived there. Bali, Indonesia. Indonesia has some great diving actually. Then where else? The Cornwall, that's where I started diving. The diving is not so great, but if you want to see, so what happens once you start diving a lot is there are different things that you can see in different places. So you will go to that just to do that kind of diving. So Cornwall, you will go to see the basking shark or take photos of the basking shark. Then south of Adelaide in Australia, there's one place called the Victoria Coast, whatever, where I dived, and that place that I dived was just to see a small thing called a leafy sea dragon. So I've dived there as well. But yeah, close to India, Maldives is the best. It's easy access and amazing.
Right. I know that we are already above time. It's already 9:30. But in the interest of passion and the Bhushan's time, if everybody is okay, we would like to probably extend it by at least 15 more minutes so that we can try to take in more questions. So I would appreciate a feedback on the Zoom chat if everybody is okay for another 15 minutes. Great. Okay. So a lot of people saying sure. Okay, and an obvious question that most of the people ask in every webinar, which is, can you earn underwater photography? Can you really earn?
That was one of my biggest challenges as well. I don't think you can earn enough to sustain from being only on that yet in India. There is very little scope of making that as one of the things that you will do. Like I earn from my sports photography. And though I have shot, like there are some Kannada feature films which needed underwater sequences, I've shot that. I have shot for some products that like a t-shirt brand that wanted to showcase their t-shirts underwater in some nice fashion thing. But none of it is multiplying at a level which you can sustain off. You can earn, but for me, my experience, I could not have earned only from underwater photography the amount I've spent in making that happen. So that definitely not. But it is opening up. There are a lot more people thinking of concepts to be shot underwater. But if you look at the percentage of, like, say, what kind of work you can get as a photographer, like, say, if you shoot fashion, if all the fashion thing has to be categorized in percentage, then the people who take fashion underwater will be like 1%. So that's very small part of it. Then the amount of, you cannot, then you can do stuff like maybe make documentaries, and documentaries will never pay you. You'll do it because you love making that or whatever else. You can work on conservation projects, which you should not be taking money for because it's conservation. So there is very little, like you can earn little from it. Like I used to shoot weddings, and there were lots of couples that called me to shoot their weddings because they could get an underwater portrait as well.
Wow.
So that was one selling card of taking my couples in their whole wedding outfit underwater. So
can't believe wedding outfit and that too underwater. Wow, amazing.
Yeah, I've shot a lot of people underwater actually, like that.
Right.
But you cannot. I don't think you can earn directly from it. But like for me, all these little things that can get attached to it, like when I was shooting weddings, a lot of weddings came to me because I could shoot underwater. Though it was just a small part in their album, like 10, 15 photos that got added on. But I got that wedding for it. So I can technically say I earned from my underwater photography. But it wasn't just that,
Right.
So it can be a good add-on to what you do, but it cannot become the thing that you do. That's what
I think now with your inspiration, a lot of people will get in, and then economy of scale will make it, probably a viable option as well. So I think great. Ritvik, I know you wanted to see some sports photography that Bhushan does, but he wants to see Sachin Tendulkar if it's possible for you to show. I don't know if you have it handy, but
not here at all. But I think on my Facebook page there is very little that I have posted, but on my Facebook page, that is the same name, Bhushan Bagadia Positives. There, if you go to the albums, there is one album called Sports, which has, I think, some 15 photos which I posted years back. That has some bits, but there is this whole Instagram and all that. I am on Instagram and on social media, but I'm not that active. But this year has taught me, this whole Corona has taught me that it is a good thing to do. So I'm going to be more on it. There will be more sports stuff that you will see that is going to come out after this IPL that I go for, and I'm going to start posting stuff from the past as well. So you will start seeing it soon.
Absolutely, and I think, like I mentioned, once Bhushan is back, we'll try and arrange a special webinar on sports photography. So let's talk about his experience of IPL and other things. So I think we'll definitely do that. So there is a question on: do you shoot in RAW?
Yeah, of course. I always shoot in RAW, but it depends on what I'm shooting. Yeah, but underwater I shoot on RAW only because I need whatever little bit I can get to actually edit that better, because there's so much to deal with in underwater photography that I'm shooting in RAW, and that's why the planning also becomes more. My card has to have that much capacity,
Right.
and I cannot just go on shooting. There's a limit to it, all that. So, but yeah, I shoot in RAW because I need every little bit that I can from the photograph. So.
Right, absolutely. And I think there were some questions on because ocean water is salty. So does it give you problems with your cameras? We know you have housing, but then
so that is like I mentioned in the talk, that how you maintain your housing is very important. So how you pack your camera in and you seal it and all that is one part of the process. After every dive, I have a 1.5 hour process again to first soak the housing in a bucket of fresh water so that the salt comes out. Then I have to rinse every part, open it, make sure there's no salt left in it, and salt can actually destroy your device. So after every time I take it into the ocean, I have to rinse it completely, dry it, and then I can pack it or set it up again for the next day's dive. But you cannot have salt at all. So that is a problem, and that's why you have to rinse it. That's the actually, if you see when you go diving somewhere, they'll have buckets to rinse all your dive gear as well. They'll have fins kept in a bucket of water. They'll have all that. When you come back, they'll want you to soak it in that. It's because of that. So most of these places now also have like a tub for the cameras. So the people who shoot underwater will come and dunk their camera in that, soak it for a bit. Even despite that, you still have to rinse it. Even despite doing all that, when I come back from my trip, the bag will still have some salt deposit here or there. So yeah, the salt is a concern, but it all goes down to how you maintain the gear.
So which actually means that it's not just the passion, but you also need a lot of patience, to do all this.
Oh, a lot, a lot. And on land, like the gear is heavy, right? Like once you put the housing and the strobes and all that, every time you're walking to the boat to go diving, whatever else, everybody's walking around, and I have this huge gear which I'm lugging around and walking. It's a lot of effort, like to do this, like to be able to shoot and to take this gear and to plan it. It's not just like how you would charge your battery, put it in, and it's ready. After you set your camera, then there is a 1 hour process of setting up for taking the camera underwater. So if you're ready to do that kind of effort, then yeah, sure, you should get into it. But that's a given. You cannot bypass that stage of taking care of that. So.
Right. I think there was a question saying, with underwater photography, can we actually do justice with clicking the colors of marine life and corals, which we actually experience under the water? So about the colors.
Sorry, I didn't get that. What did you say?
With underwater photography, can we actually do justice with clicking the colors of the marine life and corals, which we actually experience? So basically, the colors. So
you will never be able to, according to me, do justice to what your eyes can see. The challenge in life for any photographer, like this is what I've also told lots of people, is that if you can reach even like as the way to analyze whether you've shot this subject right is to think of whether you can reach it to how your eye is seeing and to get that on the camera. With underwater, I don't think I've reached anywhere close to it. Like I can say that I've got the colors close to what it looked like. Yes, of course I have. I know what that fish looked like, or what that anemone looked like, or what that coral looked like. But the more you slow down and observe the reef and the expanse and the vibrance that it has, I don't think it's not just about correcting the color and increasing it, but there is so much more depth, and the vibrance is insane. You can get close to it, but I don't think you reach like even documentaries like BBC and all these people who made stuff underwater. They haven't reached that level of it being absolutely perfect. It's not possible. It's nature. Nature is beyond all of us, and what our eyes can see, it's not possible. But that's the challenge, right? Every day to go down there to see it in a certain way, and then to be able to capture it as close to that. It's good to have that challenge every day.
Right, absolutely. So there are a lot of questions on, can we use GoPro? Can we use other equipments? Do you have any recommendations around that?
So, personal opinion, GoPro is great for video. They've got that whole system sorted and all of that. For photos, the depth is very little and the quality is not that great. Even though, like, I think everybody misunderstands what megapixel means. Like today, you have phones shooting, high megapixel, all that. But the depth that you can get is what a good sensor will do. So the GoPro sensor for photographs is, I wouldn't recommend GoPro for photographs at all. For video, yes, GoPro is great, but you need ideal conditions always for a GoPro. You need the light to be good. You need, in low light, the GoPro is really bad again. It is improving. The GoPro, the new Hero 8 is great. There are smaller cameras like the Olympus, like I said, like the TG6, TG7. These are good, small, low budget cameras which are shooting really well. But a lot of it is the better the camera, the more difficult conditions you can shoot in. That's really what it comes down to. Like if I'm shooting, when you shoot in the night, in a night dive, then there's a strobe attached. You have to use your flash to light up whatever little bit you're shooting. That's exactly like how you shoot, like how you're using your flashlight. Now I can shoot, like say when you do a studio shoot, if you're doing that with a 30 megapixel camera and versus a 100 megapixel camera, when you do a studio shoot of a product is when you realize what these megapixels can do. But otherwise, if you're shooting something else with no strobe light, with a natural light, then there is any camera will do for you, right? You don't need to have like a high megapixel camera. Like if it's nice, brightly lit thing, my phone will shoot better than anything else. So that way, the better camera should be what you should get to at a later stage. But you can start with a lot of the smaller camera, like Kodak has, like the one that what you took was a point and shoot. Today it's come up with there's a Nikon point and shoot which is for underwater. It's just a small point and shoot, which is really good, and it can go down to 30 meters, which is not bad. But the low light capability of it is lesser than what you would get with a better DSLR and all of that. But starting with a smaller camera, like starting with a GoPro is great. But I'm going to say this again, but don't start shooting underwater till you are a good diver and have at least finished 50 dives. Today, everybody wants to take cameras in their first dive. They want that photograph for Facebook saying that I've just done scuba diving and all that. Don't become a photographer then, because then you're not going to enjoy that process.
Right.
Once you become a good diver and then like diving is second nature to you, then you're going to be able to not worry about being like diving. Then your diving is second nature. Then you're going to observe the reef and what you're shooting. It's only after that stage that you can say, okay, now I've enjoyed the diving. I've seen it with a calm state of mind, and then you can start shooting. Until then, don't, because then you're going to end up damaging things around and all that. So first become a diver, and a good diver, a responsible diver, then get into photography.
Right. I think Sharmista did mention that she's very proud of you. We are all speechless. She says that I'm a PADI AOW scuba diver. As per your experience, which country is the cheapest to dive? Because she has approximately 20 dives in her log and wants to practice more.
Cheapest is a tough question. Thailand is really cheap. Like getting to Thailand is, but Thailand is really, if you haven't dived in Thailand, Thailand has a lot of places to dive. There are obviously lots of commercial spaces where there is too many tourists and all that. But there are lots of places in Thailand which are really, really nice, which not too many people go to. Then cheap wise, I don't know which other place is that cheap, because diving is generally expensive. But Bali, if you can get to Bali, getting to Bali is expensive. But if you get to Bali, then Indonesia has lots of nice cheap places. But diving generally you will spend a little bit. Like this person, Sharmista, that you said is a AOW, is Advanced Open Water Certified, which means you can dive basically in most places that there is commercial diving. There are like, if you haven't, first of all, if you haven't dived Andamans and Lakshadweep, then you shouldn't look at going out first. First dive. India has amazing, absolutely world-class dive sites. Dive here first, experience that, and it's amazing. Like, it's not. I think people expect is that every time they go to dive or they want to experience it, they want to see it like how BBC or it's not going to be like that. It's it's water. It's constantly moving. There are so many factors, so many things. If you go there with the thing of it being in those ideal conditions, it's very rare. Like for me, like I've done more than 650 dives, but in that I can tell you 20% must have been, or lesser must have been, those ideal conditions. All the other times there were different factors, like the visibility might have been low, or like there was too much particle that was there, or so many things, or we dived and we didn't see anything. All that is going to happen. So, but India has been amazing. The diving in India is beautiful. So start with India, then cheaper diving. Thailand is great. Thailand has amazing dive sites. Sri Lanka is not bad. Sri Lanka has some wrecks which are really nice. So there are lots of places like that.
And I'll definitely advise Tobermory Islands after Toronto in Canada. So that has the maximum amount of shipwrecks, that any place can probably have in one place. So that's definitely a place that you can do. There are some questions that on the sunken ship that you showed. So where exactly was your camera placed in that photograph? Has the has the ship not sunken totally?
So that particular wreck actually was an accident, and the boat had broken, and so the water started filling in, and it was not too deep. So the size of the boat was more than what the depth that place in the ocean is. This is in Maldives, close to one island in South Maldives. And so when the boat actually, when it was sinking, this was the ocean bed. This is the surface of the water, and when it sunk, it reached that, and now it has just lodged itself like this with a little bit of it jutting out. So there are many things that fell into place for me to be able to make that photograph. That the tide was low enough that there was more of the top of the boat that could be seen. So when there is low tide, the water was low, so that we had this whole thing where people could climb up, and then it wasn't that choppy. So normally when you see an ocean, it's like moving like that. That day it was very calm. So you see that the line of the water is just a nice little straight line. So there are no waves. And I was in the water. So I was at eye level in the water. So that's where so my camera was placed at a level where the lens was half in, half out. So I could shoot both. And it took a lot of photographs to get that one right, obviously. But I had,
unlike any one of us, who bracket and who take a lot of shots, I'm sure, you also
same.
Absolutely nothing. Great. There's some questions. Ayman has mentioned more of a personal question, but how do you deal with disappointments? We know that you mentioned a lot of challenges, but do you get disappointments, and how do you deal with it?
So now that I don't know how to answer, but to me, whenever there has been something, there are going to be disappointments for sure in everything. I think the only way to do it is to lower your expectation of yourself and to just pursue and push yourself to keep doing things. So if you like to push yourself to do it better, should always be there. But if you are only going to say that if only this is the way that it's going to be right, then you're making expectations more for yourself. So then if your expectations are like that, then you are going to be disappointed more when that doesn't happen. So lower the expectations and work harder. I think that should be the way to go about it.
Wonderful. I think there's a question on do marine animals also have territories like terrestrial animals?
No, absolutely. There are this whole dive sites that get identified, they are actually based on territories of these marine life. Like it's not like you can see sharks everywhere, right? You will see certain types of sharks in certain regions. So that's their territory. And they can get very territorial if you actually go into it. So there is that sense of the habitat is like that. The way they are protective of it is very similar to how it is on land and in the forests and all that. It's actually, like that's one of the things that I've learned in my life, that we underwater feels like an alien space because we can't just walk in there or whatever when we can. But it is very much similar to everything else that we've seen, like in terms of behavior of marine life and in terms of how they breed, how they protect their loved one, how they protect their, the similar, their, whoever's around them and all that. It's very, very similar to how it's on land and all that. They belong to the same planet, so it's the same.
Right. I think I will take 5 to 6 more questions, and then, like we mentioned, just in case if we cannot answer, which some of them probably we cannot. So we'll definitely make a document or something of that sort to give you the ones that are not been answered. Definitely we'll reach out. There was a question on software that you use for editing. So any specific software, or is it Lightroom, Photoshop, or the regular ones that you use?
So I use Lightroom and Photoshop only. Lightroom with underwater photography, you will end up using Photoshop. because sometimes there is because water is there, there's always something that the water is carrying. So if you want to clean up your photograph further a lot more, you will need Photoshop. But I think with Lightroom, if you've learned Lightroom well enough, then editing underwater photographs is slightly different. But Lightroom and everything that you saw today was edited on Lightroom.
Wow. Okay. That's fantastic. Great. There is a question on: can you specify any umbrella species in ocean for protection?
Means what?
I don't know. Giridharan has asked this a couple of times that can you specify any umbrella species in ocean for protection? Giridharan, do you want to elaborate your question so that Bhushan, maybe you can type in the chat box. We'll pick up the question after some time.
I'm looking at the.
Yeah, so that's fine. There is a obvious question. I was also thinking about this, Bhushan, which is are there? I mean, I know it might. If I ask this, it might be any possibilities to change lenses while you're underwater. I don't know.
So earlier there wasn't, but there is a company that has made these thing called as a wet lens.
Wow.
So you can actually change. I mean, it's not like you can just change between multiple lenses, but there are wet lenses. So what it does is actually it lodges water in between so there is the housing and there is one glass and there is water. It lodges that water there. So now this lens, you can, when you take it out, you fix it on, and then you can drain the water that's collected inside, underwater itself. So this bit, which is the glass, actually protects it. So then there are wet lenses. There are certain lenses that you can change, but it's very specific brands. Some brands have it, some don't, like that. So your underwater housing brand has to support it, and then you need to find the brand that you can use.
Right.
So you can't, like the one that I have, I can't change. I have to go back up on the boat.
Right. There was an interesting question by Dr. Shirodkar. He wanted to know that during the breeding season, sharks are so aggressive. So do you have any experiences of those during your videography or photography?
Yeah, I have actually been in a place where sharks they're breeding and they are a lot more aggressive, and you can see them actually moving around. But there has never been an incident around me, so I don't have a personal experience of any incident. But I've heard of these things. So most of the times that shark attacks have happened or whatever else has been either in breeding season, or if they have moved out of a territory where they are comfortable with, or their region, and then they're in a space so they're insecure. So most of the attacks have happened like that. I haven't been in that, luckily. So, but if you actually read about any of the incidents that have happened, they've happened during those kind of times. So. But more than sharks, I have actually experienced some other things. Like there is a thing called a triggerfish, which in Thailand it's all over. So there's one type of triggerfish called the Titan triggerfish, and it's maybe about a little bigger than this size. But its whole the scales on it are all really rough. So even if if it brushes past you, it can peel off your skin. And
Wow.
they when they have their nest, so they have this nest, and then. So if you swim above that region or that part of the reef where their nest is at, they have this conical vision. So in this conical vision, anything that is there, they will try to attack it. So if you see that attacking it, then if it's attacking you, then you have to swim backwards and move your fins in front so it can get distracted by the fins and move away from there.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So looks like there are a lot of tips and tricks, and survival stuff as well into this. Wonderful.
And you're learning on the go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure this is all part of the training as well. It's not that instincts come to you naturally. But, there are some questions on the lighting. So I know you mentioned that sunlight is a major factor. But apart from sunlight, are there anything else, artificial lights or anything that you put in?
Means the strobe that I have is my artificial light as a flash. Then there are also video lights that you get, which you can take underwater. So those and the video lights you can get in very strong lights as well. There are bigger lights which you can take underwater. Like there was some documentary that was being shot underwater, and they took these giant lights and put them underwater, and they lit up the whole reef. But I don't think you should do that. I already feel that this strobe disturbs the marine life already. But with that kind of light, it can change quite a bit. So shooting underwater is a very sensitive, you know, thing to do. So you cannot use like larger lights like that. It is going to affect the ecosystem there and disrupt quite a bit, you know.
Okay.
So, but the video lights that you get are strong enough for what you want to do. Like I've actually got some night dive videos which are shot with just a small video light and my camera, which are quite cool. And it
Wonderful.
works well.
Last two questions, Bhushan. We already at close to 10. So let me just take last two questions. I don't know if you had realized, but at peak we had nearly had 525 people joining this webinar, and we still have nearly 180 people still with us. So that itself shows the passion and the interest that everybody has into this. So I think that's wonderful. There's a question about what are difficulties in getting permission from government for scuba diving in coral reef regions.
So there is a way that you can go and dive. Once you start diving, you can't just pick up a tank and go dive anywhere. It's a very regulated space. You can get permissions to go dive, but there is a lot of paperwork and all of that. Uh, it's not impossible, but if you want to go dive somewhere where you think that you can go dive, it's a process, but it's possible. It's not. See, a lot of these places where there is good marine life, they become like marine protection areas. So these MPAs that are identified, you cannot dive there. So that a lot of those regions are the places that you would want to dive because that's where marine life is. But those are protected areas, so you have to go through a certain system to be able to dive there. Beyond that, any other places that you want to dive, I think over the years have already been identified as places that there is nothing to see or nothing that you can dive there for. So there is very little like that, but there is a way to do it. I mean, you can actually get it done and get permissions and all that, but it is a very big process. I would rather I think that if I am diving in places that are already identified, I will still not finish all of them in my lifetime. That's how many there are. So.
Absolutely. I think Giridharan has come back with his clarification. What he meant was on land, tiger is an umbrella species, which protecting tiger will help in protection of the whole forest. So likewise, he wanted to know in the ocean, what helps in protecting the entire ecosystem.
So this is a very marine understanding level of question, which even I don't think I can answer with proper doing justice to it. But I know that the sharks are a huge, huge influence and a factor in the overall ecosystem of the ocean. And protecting sharks is a big, big thing today. But there is, I can, if Giridharan wants, I can connect him to people who know a lot more about this. I'm not an expert on that, so I don't think I should even try answering that exactly because I might say something that is not right. But yeah, sharks are as important. Like when you talk about tigers, I think for me, I've spoken more about sharks in my life with people than I would have spoken about tigers.
Right.
So I'm guessing they are at quite an. But to answer your question, I'll have to connect you with someone else. And I'm just telling you, really, I don't know that, so it's not.
Not a problem. I think that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. I think thank you, Bhushan, for for something that we never had experienced. At least I had not experienced. So I think today's 2 hours that you spent with us should have given people enough inspiration to follow you, to follow the passion, and hopefully have a big community in under this genre of photography, which will hopefully take people to newer heights, especially in India. Like you rightly said, we do not have any better mechanisms to learn to do stuff, and even from an equipment perspective. So I think you opened a whole lot of opportunities and inspiration for people. So thank you very much, Bhushan. And like I said, once you're back from IPL, we would want to to look at sports as well as a detailed class for all those who are interested. There are a lot of people who are wanting to learn, wanting to see what else goes under this. So and hopefully the pandemic becomes milder by the time you come back, and we are in better shape, right? So
Done. We'll do that.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Bhushan, for this wonderful session. It was very informative. Thank you from all of us here at Honeycomb, and thank you, Mithun. Thank you, audience.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Good night, everyone, and stay safe.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.